Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. We're going to go into one of my favorite subjects in the antiques and collectibles trade, but I have to issue a caveat before I release this video. Please understand that in this video, I'm going to give you just enough information to be dangerous in investing in investment grade wine. Now, this is a very sophisticated market. This is not a market that the average person who just collects Pokemon cards or Magic the Gathering cards, or even on the other end of the spectrum, art and traditional antiques should flock to. There's a lot of inherent risks in this market. Wine is a regulated market. There's taxes, there's rules and regulations for selling it, there's even rules and regulations in some cases for shipping it and even shipping it across state and country lines. You must keep that in mind if you're going to get into this market. Another thing you must understand is that wine has more expenses than most collecting categories out there because it has to be stored properly, and it also has to be stored in a climate-controlled unit, or what is known usually as a wine cellar, to maximize its taste and value should you go to sell it. You also, if you are buying wine for investment, obviously you can't open it and drink it either. So there is that fundamental risk as well. A lot of people out there that I know like cracking open a bottle of expensive wine, myself included, from time to time. If you're on a date with a woman, if a woman's coming back to your house, you want to impress her, you can pull open a bottle of $500 wine, and I guarantee she will remember that evening going forward if she knows that that wine costs and is worth $500 that you're pouring her a glass of. It will leave an impression on her. I've done that as part of my seduction techniques. I know, creepy Sean here, but I'm just telling you guys. So this is a market that is more meant for sophisticated investors, sophisticated collectors, people that really have the money and the understanding as to how to play in this market. Now, with that said, I'm going to talk a little bit about this market, and this is going to be a fairly short video. If you guys want me to do a longer video on this, I gladly will. I am not going to show you any bottles of wine that I have in my own collection or in my house at present time, because I always fear every time I pull out a bottle of alcohol and put it on camera, or any of these items like guns, knives, weapons, I always worry that YouTube is going to take down the video for violating some term or condition that I'm not aware of, and then I get a strike against me. So we're not going to go in that direction just yet. Maybe in the future, if I read through YouTube's terms and conditions and I see, hey, I can show a bottle of wine on camera, we're good, without any recourse or consequences, I'll gladly do it in an upcoming video. So this is what you need to understand about investment grade wine. Now, first, the question we got to answer, Sean, what is investment grade wine? Can I just go to the local liquor store, buy a bottle of wine, and call it an investment grade wine? The answer is absolutely not. Investment grade wine is a wine that has a reasonable chance of appreciating in value over the medium to long term, typically at least 5 years or more. Let me say that again, guys. Medium to long term, typically 5 years of age or more. What that means is, if you get involved in this market, you understand all the regulations, you understand how you can sell it, how you can transport it, how you can't sell it, how in some cases you can't transport it. You understand all the risks in this market. You are looking at buying something that is going to sit in your wine cellar for 5 years untouched. Then, if all the right criteria were met, you're going to be able to sell that for a little bit of a profit. That's what you're looking at. If you don't have 5 years, if you don't understand the idiosyncrasies of this market that I'm going to talk about in this video, this market is not for you. Just gain the knowledge and then forget about it. Maybe in 10, 20 years, you will be able to come back into this market when you have more money or when you have a greater understanding of this market to play in this proverbial pool in the collectibles marketplace. Now, do I invest heavily in wine? Obviously not. I'm a casual connoisseur. I have a couple of bottles that I bought for several $1,000s at some point throughout my career, where today, if I sold them, I would probably make several $1,000s on some of those bottles. That's it. I do not have a lot of wine, guys. I am not somebody that has a cellar that's stored to the brim. I am somebody that maybe speculates and invests in 10 bottles at a time. That's really it. And some of those bottles I actually buy to drink. So I'm not investing fully in all of them. I am by no means an expert in this realm. I want to state that firsthand. So now going back to what we're talking about. Again, what is investment grade wine? Investment grade wine is wine that has a reasonable chance of appreciating in value over the medium to long term, typically at least 5 years. So that should give you an answer on how we define investment grade wine. Now, there are many publications in the trade that talk about wine investing, wine collecting, even wine speculating. Investment grade wine, to a lot of these publications, is defined as wine that makes up less than 1% of the world's total wine supply. Let me say that again for you guys. Investment grade wine, on average, is defined as wine that can appreciate over the mid to long term, and it also makes up less than 1% of the total world's wine supply. So if you go to your local liquor store and you buy a $30 bottle of wine, or even in some cases a $110 bottle of wine, chances are the wine that you are buying is not of investment grade. It is not even something you want to hold for the long term if you are looking to make a profit in this market. The vast majority of investment grade wine, and please hear me out, there's a reason why I'm speaking in this monotone voice when I do this. The vast majority of it comes from noted places in Europe like Bordeaux, Champagne, Burgundy, maybe the Rhone region in France. And if you want to talk about Italian wines, you're talking about Tuscany and Piedmont in Italy. Those are the places most often associated with investment grade wine, which again is 1% of the total world's output supply of wine. Less than 1%, guys. Please keep that in mind. Now, there are certain investment grade wines that do come from Germany, Austria, Spain, even America, but most of those particular wines are lesser known, and they're not overall very popular brands that the average wine connoisseur and investor is going to want to get into. So in my opinion, if you're going after investment grade wine, you learn this market, you get involved in it, stick to mainly the European wines that I've mentioned from Bordeaux, Champagne, Burgundy, the Rhone region. Or if you want to risk it a little, you can go over to Italy and get involved in some of the wines that are coming from Tuscany and Piedmont. Those are your main areas for investing in investment grade wine. Now, this gets a little bit more complex, guys. There are certain characteristics of investment grade wine that we have to talk about today. Now, you're going to find this listing almost everywhere. It's pretty much a generally accepted universal list when you are investing in wine. There's a lot of publications out there that I'm not going to name in this video again. We don't want to keep it complex. We want to keep this simple, where a lot of these publications state what some of these characteristics are. I'm going to mention some right now. You got to look at the producer pedigree. Investment grade wines must be produced by wineries with impeccable reputations. Again, not going to name any in this video, just giving you enough information to be dangerous and or, pun intended, whet your appetite for another upcoming video on this topic. Also, investment grade wine must be rated classic or equivalent by one or more noted wine publications. Now, I'm going to name these publications, either Wine Spectator or Wine Advocate. There are two well-known publications in this trade. If they grade the wine as classic or equivalent, it could very well be an investment grade wine. Now, complicating things, there's other characteristics we have to look at. One of them is production quantity. Investment grade wine requires a liquid secondary market. If it's overproduced and readily available, obviously, guys, it's not investment grade wine. Investment grade wine should be scarce in nature. It should not be common. You should not usually be able to buy it right off the primary market for just a few dollars. In most cases, these wines are already going to have significant value on the primary market, meaning unlike speculating in a lot of mass-produced collectibles like Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, toys, comic books, these items are not made with mass-produced scarcity. They're made with true rarity and scarcity if it is an investment-grade wine. And it also has to have a liquid secondary market. Pun intended on the word liquid. The next thing you must understand, longevity. Wine must reach peak maturity. Let me say that again, guys. Wine must reach peak maturity. Often this is simply described as peak or peaking. When we talk about wine investing, wine collecting, a wine connoisseur, wine enthusiast, which usually happens 10 years after it being bottled and being able to age. Now, what that means is, if you are going after these items, it is a 5 to 10 year holding period as a result. Yes, there are certain investment grade wines where you can get lucky. 5 years later, you can flip it into the market for a profit. But overall, you must keep this stuff usually for a decade or longer if you're not buying those type of wines. And you really got to do your research. Again, I said this is a very introductory video. Now, the wine, either the specific vintage being assessed or previous vintages from the same producer, must have a clear record of price appreciation over generally the last 5 to 10 years on average. And this is something that you'll find in any guide out there, in any book on investing in wine, even on internet sites. A lot of this information is readily out there. It's just worded differently depending on what site you go to, depending on how you research these markets. One thing that you're going to learn, if you can get involved with investing, speculating, or getting involved in the market for investment grade wine, you really learn patience. You really learn patience and understanding, because this market is unlike a lot of the other collecting markets out there. This market's on par with rare whiskey, which I am going to do a video on that as well. But just know, these markets are regulated, guys. You cannot just pull a rare bottle of wine off the shelf, ship it to an auction company in California, and they're guaranteed to be able to sell it for you. You really have to do your research. You really have to follow up with a lot of auction companies that cater to this market, see what they're taking, see what the regulations and taxes are on these particular items. Again, this is an introductory video. I'm just whetting your proverbial appetite for this market a little bit. However, if you do get involved in this market, maybe you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, when you get into this market, it can be very rewarding. But just understand, this is not a market where you're going to want to put a lot of capital in if you don't have the money to risk, if you don't have the money to keep there for 5, 10, 15 years in some cases. So just know that going forward. At the very least, I'm going to end the video here. I hope it was eye-opening on how this market works. If you want to see a follow-up video on this where I go in greater detail and I expand on this concept and we do maybe a 30, 40-minute video on this, let me know in the comment section below. I also want to state to all my critics out there, keep in mind before you attack me, this was a very simple video. All the idiosyncrasies of the rare wine investing marketplace could not be done in a full 15-minute video. If I expand on this concept, I will gladly go in detail on those concepts and others. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you got something out of it. Please be careful if you get involved in this market. Thank you and have a good night.